Well, thank you, Monica. And could everybody who has a vacant seat next to you raise a hand? We have some folks sitting in back and a little bit greater turnout than we expected, but thank you all for being here. So if any of you want to move in, there's seats available here. Great, thank you. So what I want to do with this part of the presentation today and this part of your afternoon is really go over a little bit of the history, how we've gotten to this point, but also to describe what we're undertaking in this work program. And one of the first questions that come to our mind is what is sustainability and what is sustainable? And so capable of being sustained, well more than that, but there are many definitions, many groups out there, and I was here with the Sacramento Sustainability Forum last week, and they're looking at sustainable buildings, sustainable building products, sustainable communities that come from those buildings. We're really looking at the broader picture. How do we build a sustainable region and a sustainable transportation system that values the citizens we have here and the equity of our region that we are so recognized for across the country? So the end product from all of our grants is required to be this regional plan for sustainable development. Every region across the U.S. has to develop one, but they are all going to look different because each of our regions is unique and each of us have unique issues that we are working on with this program. And so as we go through this partnership, I think it's going to be really exciting to see the energy that's come out from across the country from these regional plans for sustainable development. So some of the acronyms I'll be using throughout the presentation are the MTP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. That's really SACOG's core work product. What we produce is a 20-year vision of what is needed for financially constrained transportation projects, but what we also have to examine that land use that goes underneath those projects. And we've really done a better job over the years of examining that land use that I'll get to in a moment. The Sustainable Community Strategy is that land use and some other measures that go underneath our transportation plan, the SCS. And so I'll be using that throughout the presentation. The RPSD I just described really links this new integrated planning process and is what you are all going to help us develop as we move through this grant work program. And then the transit priority area, the TPA, we'll all come to know that throughout this planning process. That those are the areas that are within a half mile of high quality transit where we can leverage our investments and where we can build a community that helps support a sustainable transportation system. So some of the recent history, many of you were here through this history, but SACOG started with a blueprint project in 2002 when our board asked us how we could reduce congestion beyond what we were doing in our traditional planning process. We came back to them and told them we had to look at land use because land use was the essential element that could make that key difference in congestion. And so we took this vision of 2050, we took this base case scenario of what was happening in our region for primarily suburban development, and we looked at what we could do if we grew not only outward but inward and upward in some areas. And you can see the change in the purple that is now the norm in our planning process for the lands that will not be consumed in the future by development. We followed that in 2004 through 2006 with the first transportation plan, the first MTP that used that blueprint land use, and out of that we came up with the need for shorter trips that the land use would be generating. And so the last MTP we developed looked at those shorter trips, looked at how we could include bicycle and pedestrian trips, investment for complete streets in our planning process, and so you are all going to help us build on that transportation plan now. 2006, we started another project that was requested by our board of directors, which was the Rural Urban Connection Strategy Project, the RUCS project. And this project is really looking at how do we value the rural parts of our region, how do we recognize the economic vitality that they provide to our region so that we are fully acknowledging any of those portions of the region that we have to give up as we grow. Some of the tools we've developed for that will be available for this planning process is we've enhanced our iPlaces tool to not only include housing and land and commercial land uses, but we can now do economic analysis on crops and really expanding our portfolio of what we can bring to the table. This is one of the outputs from that process is a map of labor demand from commodity agriculture. And this will be a unique value to those looking at how we develop workforce housing. So what really was the game changer was the signing of Senate Bill 375 in 2008. And this is one of the key instruments that's going to help implement the Global Warming Solutions Act of 2006 that Governor Schwarzenegger signed. And so the SB 375 requires SACOG to develop that Sustainable Community Strategy, that SCS, and it requires us to look at the greenhouse gas consequences from light-duty trucks and autos of the transportation and land use that we're developing. And so that's really what we're looking at when we look at the SCS. We need to show that we can reduce those greenhouse gases that come from our investments in future land use and transportation. This shows what we're up against. The 4 largest regions in the state generate 83% of the greenhouse gases from those light-duty autos and trucks. And so we're actively working with those 4 largest regions to see how can we reduce our greenhouse gases in our planning efforts. The MPO must include a sustainable community strategy in our regional transportation plan, in our MTP. We have targets that we have set for ourselves saying that we can reduce greenhouse gases by 7% by 2020 and by 16% by 2035 with our planning process. And through the analysis that you will help us do throughout this Sustainable Communities Planning Grant, we will find out how we can do that. This new planning process also links our regional housing needs planning to our transportation plan. And so we're developing a new integrated planning process as we go through this project. Local jurisdictions still have the authority on land use, and so that there is no change to that. But what SB 375 did was it allows us to incentivize the development of land use around transit. And so through some measures that include CEQA streamlining for projects that are in those transit priority areas, we are looking to incentivize the development of housing and new communities around the transit system that we will see here in the future. And so it's shifting that project analysis from the local level to the regional level. And you'll be helping us develop the analysis that goes into this environmental document. Again, is for projects that are within a half-mile of high-quality transit that are over 20 net dwelling units to the acre or above. But they'll be able to do a more limited environmental review of their plans, which will make the cost of development cheaper for those developments that are going in around transit, so that it will be more attractive for the development community to develop near transit than it would be necessarily out on the edges of the region. So a little bit about our grant program today, and this will all be developing as we go through the process here. But again, the Regional Sustainable Development Plan is our product and is what you'll be helping us produce throughout this process. And it's really focused on how do we consider the needs of the underserved population in our region, how do we collect the concerns of the local communities, and what are the strategies that we can develop as a region, as a partnership, as a consortium to address those concerns and to meet those needs. This is an example of what we're viewing as the relationship between the public and the constituents of this program. As we go through, we're going to have communities of interest who will be working on topics, members of the public that will be involved in that process, so that we can inform the decision makers, Sacramento Housing Redevelopment, who's our deputy project manager on this project, and Valley Vision, who's our nonprofit partner. How do we inform these groups and our board of directors as to the decisions and the strategies that we need to meet those needs in the concerns of the communities? So the way that we'll be doing this is by setting up working groups and working sessions of groups throughout the project, and those will start this month with Chris Benner's presentation. The Center for Regional Change is on board to help us do an analysis of equity across the region. They have a wealth of experience in working with the California Endowment around the state of California to look at equity and to look at how we address the needs of the underserved community. And so we'll have a health and equity and education group that really delves into those performance metrics. And so we're asking for your help today to develop those as we move through the process, but by coming to one of these working sessions and being a part of one of those working groups. We'll have an infrastructure working group that Regional Water Authority will be leading, where we'll bring in the electric utilities in the sewer districts and the water districts, and look at how do we plan for infrastructure in the region so that we are recognizing the full cost of development and developing strategies to finance that infrastructure. An economic development group will be led by Valley Vision. And this will not only include economic development groups, but workforce training, chambers of commerce, outreach to the public health system in the region, and the larger health institutions in the region, so that we can fully integrate our planning efforts in the region, which is the goal of this project. And there are more working groups that will be formed. We heard today from a group that wants to go into the natural resource analysis and form a group around that. And so SACOG will lead a group looking at those issues as we move into our environmental document for the MTP and the SCS, but also into future planning efforts that we have. How will we do all of this? It is through monthly meetings of this group. And so we'll have monthly meetings of the Sacramento Consortium. They will meet monthly to help inform the steering committee of what's needed in future work, in future content for the project. And so we're asking you all to come back here on a monthly basis to help inform us on this planning process. So what is the project plan? What are we doing in this? We have three main work activities as we go through this process. And the first activity is really focused on our MTP, on our planning efforts that are underway. And these were written into the grant so that this is what we know we have to do, but there's opportunity to add additional activities as we go through this process. But how do we develop those transit priority areas in a way that recognizes the equity that our region already has and where we need improvement in that equity, and while preserving the opportunities we have and the health of the community both economically and physically as we go through this process. So the first task we're kicking off today with the Center for Regional Change. And so Chris Benner will be presenting some of the performance metrics that they've been looking at on equity, and we'll be asking you to help form a working group around this topic so that we can come back at the next two meetings and really delve into those measures and really make sure that we have a good understanding of the performance metrics we want to see out of this new planning effort that we're doing in the region. We'll enhance the data and analytical tools to actually meet those measures. And this is one of the tools that we use at SACOG. This is a land use plan that would come to us and go into our iPlaces analysis software, and we can generate metrics from transportation to housing type and that from the planning efforts. But we'll be investing in a new part of the tool for this, which is a return on investment, so that we can actually work with the development communities to see what is actually a realistic land use that they can invest in the region, and to see if you see the areas here in the white and black areas might need a public investment in order to make this plan realistic, because that it's not going to perform for a developer to do, and so some public dollars might be a place where we would invest through an infrastructure grant or other process to help make these plans real. We have a new infrastructure cost model that we've developed that we'll be taking out to the infrastructure community so that we can fully value the cost of infrastructure, so that we are really understanding what it takes to build these new communities, because that's one of the challenges we've heard from the development community is that they're often hit by these giant infrastructure bills for the infill development. So we need to be better informed on that. We'll have the infrastructure working group that regional water authorities is going to help us form to go through this process, to work on that. Chris will talk about access to opportunities. This is a quick project that we did at SACOG to look at how our transit-dependent population, how can they access the opportunity, the services that they need throughout the region. So the darker areas are the lower income populations. Transit routes are on there, and this is a bad graphic, but it serves a purpose, and we can improve upon this as we go out throughout the planning effort. And again, it's all how do we create this vision for transit priority areas, but not just a vision. How do we actually create the tools that can help build these areas in our region? Task